Welcome everyone to Breaking Into Tech. I'm excited to be here with Rob this week. Not only is he a Sabio graduate, but he also works at Sabio. So I'm really excited to hear about both sides of being at Sabio as a student and as an employee. So welcome to the show, Rob. I'm so excited to have you here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
So if you're listening and you want to say where you're listening from, feel free to write that in the chat and feel free to ask questions as we go through the episode. We'll answer as many as we can. But let's start by learning who you are, Rob. Tell us a little bit about your background. I know you have some military experience, and then we'll learn about how you ended up at Sabio.
Yeah. So I'm Rob Rukavina. I'm from Salt Lake City, Utah. Um, I was born and raised here. I've lived in, Arizona and California, and yeah, a couple different places in California. And I always end up back in Salt Lake. Um, so yeah, I guess I'll stay here. Um, I was in the Navy for 2 years and 10 months, if you want to get technical. Did two Western Pacific deployments. I was a steam propulsion engineer. They call them machinist mates. Uh, and yeah, I really enjoyed that and got out and got into audio engineering. I mixed live sound for concerts and conventions and things like that. Um, and yeah, then COVID hit and I was out of work. And so I went to Sabio using vet tech benefits and yeah, started doing some contracting after that, and now I'm here.
Yeah, that's really interesting. With the pandemic hitting, there's no mixing, no concerts, like everything. So you had to pivot. And how did you find out about Sabio? You said you use VetTech. Did you go to their website or how did that come about?
So the VA actually emailed me and said, "Hey, there's this new program," and so I started looking into it, and Sabio was at the top of their list of places to use these benefits at, and so I went to an info session, and it's funny because my neighbor was like, "Dude, you got to do something," and he's like, "You should go into that. You should check it out." And so he actually came to the info session with me. It was all on Zoom, and so he was there listening in, and I was like, "Man, I don't know if I can put in the time that this is going to require. Like, it's a lot." And so I went away from that thinking, "Oh, I'm not going to do it." But then he kept pushing me, and my other friend was like, "You can do it." And so I decided to give it a shot. And I remember I had like, I don't know, 2 days to get the entrance. At the time, there was an entrance assessment that you had to pass to be accepted in. And I had like 2 days to cram and write all the code to get to it and take the assessment and pass. And yeah, I put everything I had into it, and I made it. And Gregorio let me into the cohort 88, and yeah, the rest is history, right?
Yeah. So it was the encouragement of your friends. You were kind of like not doubting if you could do it or if you should do it, and they really pushed you to take that step.
Yeah, I mean, I knew I could do it. I just wasn't sure I wanted to commit to that much, right? I
Yeah.
was working, before that, I wasn't working full time. I was kind of, you know, some weeks I'd have 60 or 80 hours a week, and then other weeks I'd have 20 or zero. And so I didn't know if I wanted that much consistency because it's 66 hours a week of coding. So that's a big change from what I was used to. And plus, I love audio engineering. I love mixing sound. Um, it's really fun, especially when it's for like a band, right? But um, yeah, and so, but I just knew that I needed something more stable and something where I could grow. And because I was already an A1, which is a lead audio engineer, they're sure I could mix for some bigger bands or whatever, but there wasn't really much growth from there other than now getting more into the business operations and hiring guys to work for me or gals or and I just didn't want to do that. So I had lots of reasons to do it, and I just needed to let it kind of sit in the back of my mind until I was ready. So
Yeah. And so you study really hard. Now Savio's incorporated that pre-work into the course, correct? Yeah.
yeah, correct. So we have two different programs. You can do the 17 weeks, which incorporates all that pre-work, and then you take that entrance assessment at the end of the first 4 weeks. Or you can do the 13 weeks if you test in beforehand, and they're both great programs. So yeah, it's added some, ability for those who need a little help through the pre-work to come and take the 17-week program and get in successfully. So
Yeah, that's great to hear that you have both options available so that if someone came in and they had like a strong coding background, they could, skip over that initial phase. And if someone has no coding background, they have that support to get them through those first 4 weeks.
yep, absolutely.
Yeah. So obviously you passed after studying really hard, and I'm sure that your audio engineering background had some help in. Was that like a transferable skill or?
In some ways, it was more transferable once I got hired to work at Sabio, and we can talk about that in a little while too, or now if you want. But I mean, the biggest thing I think is attention to detail, right? So the skills from the Navy really helped, because you can write code that looks right and looks like it should work, and you can have one semicolon missing or one parenthesis missing, or something, just one little thing off, and it won't work. And you have to, and even with attention to detail from the military, it's even can be more extreme in coding. And so you have to really learn to pay attention to that stuff and watch for spelling errors or things like that. So
Yeah. As a blogger, I use the HTML side to, try and troubleshoot, and I had my VA working with me and I was like, "See right here, there's this like one little thing." And she's like, "It just looks like numbers all mixed together." But if you can read it and you have that attention to detail, you can see like, "Oh, this one little thing." And it messes up the whole, rest of the web page when you have that one little thing wrong. So yes, attention to detail for sure.
yep.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about your time, like, of going to Sabio as a student, and then later on we can talk about what you're doing as an employee. But what was it like to start the boot camp and to dive in after passing the initial assessment?
Yeah, it was nerve-wracking, right? Like I said, I took the info session and I had like 2 days to complete all the pre-work, and I had no clue what I was doing. And so I got into the boot camp and I was still kind of fresh and clueless, and making a lot of errors, and I call it beating my head against the code wall. And the cool part about that, though, is when you break through that code wall and you get something to work that you've been fighting against for hours or days or whatever, it's really a great feeling. Now, I will say, back then the queue was a little bit different than it is now, and I guess let me get into what the queue is first. So as you go through the program, you have these exercises to work on, or basically tasks to do, and there's videos instructing you through it, but they don't cover everything exactly, because we want you to think and build and learn by experimenting and trying things different ways. And so naturally, because of that, you're going to run into errors and bugs, and I had lots of those. Every developer has lots of bugs. And so we have this thing called the queue, where if you get stuck, if you have an error or a bug, you put yourself on the queue and an instructor will pick you up, and pull you into a Zoom call and help you out with solving those bugs. And that was a like life-saving because I don't know what I'm doing, right? And I'm sitting there, this new guy in coding, and trying to make HTML and JavaScript work together to make changes to the page. And yeah, I'm just writing, lots of spelling errors and, missing different things. And so getting onto the queue really helped me to break through those. And then, you go through and you start at the very beginning, just defining variables or writing a simple HTML document that is completely static and nothing changes as different user actions happen or whatever. And then you go and you learn how to make changes to that HTML, excuse me, using, JavaScript and jQuery, and then you get into React later on. And then at some point, I had this epiphany of like the macro view of how things connect and how things work together to make different things happen. And that was when I was like, oh, maybe I can actually do this. But then, the instructors are all there to help you through that. And it's great because, I think all of us would be lost without them. So yeah, then you get farther into the program and you get into React and C# and SQL. And then you start piecing all these different languages and frameworks together to make a web application. And then once you do that, you get into what your cohort actual project is. And I worked on a project called WebMall. And that never, I don't think, went anywhere, but I've noticed that Amazon is doing something similar to it now, where you could have a storefront on the website, and like sellers on that website could live stream their products or whatever, kind of like we're doing here, but they'd be, selling you their product or showing you how it's built or how it works. And it was a really cool application to work on. And then you have mock interviews. So we got the whole process of, okay, you're going into this thing like it's a job interview. It's a senior instructor conducting the interview. And they're going to be asked to write code not inside of a code editor. We call it whiteboarding in the industry. And there's no syntax help. There's no IntelliSense. There's no formatters. You have to write the code, and you have to pay attention to detail and put the semicolons where they go and the parentheses where they go, and everything has to be structured correctly. And you're also asked questions about, kind of how things work. What is dependency injection? What makes React different from HTML and JavaScript? And how is it the same in a lot of ways? And so that prepares you for the interview process. And I can tell you that it's just as nerve-wracking as a real interview, because by this time, you've put in so much time into the program that you're like, if I fail this interview, like, it feels like the end of the world, because it means I didn't know what I needed to know, and I've worked this hard to get here. So, but it really does prepare you for real world interviews. And I loved it. So
Yeah, I love that Sabio's program not only teaches you like the importance of like learning the different type of coding programs, and we had an interview last week with Gregario, and they were talking about how they're integrating AI into like future programs. And so like the content as a student is always changing and adapting as things change, but then it also has the real world of like not just the classroom, but like how do you get a job? How do you take what you've applied in this class to the real world, and how can you talk about it? And with the mock interviews and helping with your resume and all the different support that they have, I think that's what is so great about the program. It's like top-notch classroom work, but then also the other end to help making sure that all that hard work you did leads to a job and a career.
absolutely. And that's where I think Sabio stands out from the others. Is one is the job search stuff, right? We have a whole slew of curriculum based on helping you prepare for interviews, how to act and talk and do interviews. And then we even go into, should you accept this offer or should you negotiate? Like this whole job searching, career finding process. We help you build out your resume. We help you build out your LinkedIn. We get you ready to present yourself to these companies in the best way possible. And it really does help, right? And then the other thing is the community afterwards and during, right? You have access to all of Sabio's community, all of our previous alumni, all of our, current students, and we're all there to help, right? And so it really is helpful if you're, if you get a job afterwards and you don't know how to do something and you're like, I need some help. We've got a channel. You can go post a question in and somebody will help you. And so it's really great. And I don't think a lot of places have that.
Yeah, I mean, I was just thinking about like when I left the military, how ill-equipped and ill-prepared I was. Like I had a week-long TAF course, transition assistance program, but the interview was like a group interview and it was kind of like very vague and not anything like what you experience in an actual interview. And so I I think that's one of the reasons that I really love Sabio's program is because when I left the military, I felt so like I had the training and I had the skills, but I didn't know how to share those skills in an interview. I didn't know how to translate the work that I had done. And so I think that's really important because classroom and then the real world is different. And Sabio integrates the real world into the classroom. So you're already one step ahead. But then they even, do the interviews and ensure you know how to do all those things. So I think that's why I love it so much.
Yeah, no. And on top of that, like you touched on, classroom and actual work is different, right? And so we have people come from 4-year college computer science degrees and they learn more in our program than they learned in the 4 years they spent in college. And, um, it's kind of like any trade, right? Experience on the job is worth more than a degree, a piece of paper that says you showed up to class and, maybe you used GitHub or OpenAI, what's the ChatGPT,
Yeah.
to pass your assessments, right? Like, if you can go and show code that you've written that works on a live application, which is what our graduates can do, it really benefits you. And it definitely benefited me. And it also, you get your foot in the door building stuff and having those problems, right? Like, I don't know what college entails for a computer science degree because I didn't do it, but I'm assuming it's okay. Here's how you write a class in C#, and here's, how you define a function. Sure, those are great things to know, but can you put that all together and make it work and, then deploy it to a live site and have users come, test your stuff? And you get that here. And in doing so, you hit a lot of problems that were unforeseen when you started on that. And you get to debug that and figure out how to fix those problems. And that's what really helps you grow as a developer, because anybody can go, watch a video or read in a textbook how to build this one thing. But then when you try and implement other features and stuff, and you hit those bugs, you get to go and research how to fix that. And you're not going to always find the exact answer. You're going to find something that you're like, I don't know if that's right or not, but let me try it. And so you'll take what you find on Stack Overflow and try and implement it to make whatever bug you're trying to work on go away. And in doing so, you learn a lot. So
Yeah, it's a completely different way of like problem solving and learning, instead of like when I took a C++ programming class when I was a learning to be an engineer, and it was part of the basic requirement. And we used a lot of like if then statements, but it was like a lot of plug and play with what was on the screen, and we just put like X instead of Y, and it wasn't like actual, solving a problem and finding how to do something new. It was basically repeat what's already in the textbook. So very different.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing. The problem solving is one of the greatest skills that you can learn. And maybe you go to get into coding and you go to Sabio and you graduate, and then you go and do a coding job for a while and you decide you want to move on to something else. I guarantee you those problem solving skills and just the people skills you learn working in a team, and the organization you learn having to organize the project files in a certain order, all of that will benefit you anywhere you go. So
Yeah. So let's talk about you graduated. What was your job after, or what was the process of getting a job after graduation?
yeah, so I submitted, I don't even know how many. I used to have the count in my memory, but it was thousands of resumes. And at the time, I still own my own company, but I don't really do anything with it now. But at the time, I was struggling to find a job. And so I was just doing little side jobs through my company as a subcontractor. Liliana actually contracted me to build on some of the WordPress sites that we had as like sister sites, the women's site and the Sabio blog and things like that. And so that kind of helped keep me afloat. And then eventually Liliana and Gregorio offered me a job as a full-time employee. And I was brought on to build, we had our main public site that was built in MVC, which I didn't know. I'd never even looked at MVC. And so for those who don't know, that's C# and HTML. It's a framework that's built in .NET, and it's model view controller. Anyway, we had an old version of the public site that they wanted to, bring over to a new theme and build a new fresh look, and add some more functionality, and then also bring over those sister sites into the main site. And so that's what I was hired to do. And also I was going to be an instructor for, at the time we had some Amazon cohorts. So I was kind of managing instructors over that, and building the public site and the new theme. Sorry. And yeah, that's what started me here at Sabio, and I love every minute of it. I'm now building the public site and our Lisa application, which is our learning management system. That's where all of our curriculum is housed. And this is where my audio engineering skills kind of came in. I started, once we got Lisa up and running, I started putting all of our content from the old place that it was hosted into our own system now, and building out all the tasks and task sections, and having to go through and watch the videos, put them into our hosting provider, and then deal with all of the content management there. And now I'm training a guy to take over the public site from me, so I can focus more on that side of things, and helping with testing students' work. We run basically unit tests to test that students are writing the code the way they're being taught, and help them by providing better error messages when they're doing things incorrectly or different than we want them. And it's really exciting because it's always learning and growing, right? And I know that it's helping people. This is the part I like the most about it. I get to help people that are in the same place I was in, or, they're in all different places, but I know where I was at when I went to Sabio, and I was down on my luck, and I felt like the world was falling in on me. And Sabio gave me a way out of that to have an awesome life. And that's what I want to help others do. So that's what I love about this the most.
I love that. That brings it like full circle. I love that you're doing something that you love, but then you also get to help people, which that's like a very veteran theme that when I talk, because I have a podcast where I interview women veterans, and there's a theme about helping the next generation or helping someone who's behind you. And I think that that's just really great to hear. And I love hearing your story about how your life has changed and how Sabio has given you the opportunities. So, what advice would you give to someone who's considering a career in software engineering?
It kind of depends on where they're at, right? If you already have a gung ho attitude of I can do this and I'm gonna make it work no matter what, great. You're ready. Get started. Go talk with admissions. We'll get you set up and get you in the next cohort. If you're kind of doubtful if this is the thing for you or not, go do our pre-work, right? Go to sabio.la/free coding courses, enroll in those courses and try them out. And that way you can kind of see if it's for you. But in either case, I would say this is a tough program, right? It takes a lot of effort. And the biggest thing is you got to keep a positive attitude, right? It's hard. It's frustrating. Sometimes you'll write code that just won't work. No matter what you do, it doesn't work and you can't figure out why. And now you feel like a failure. And that's hard sometimes, right? That can really beat you down. But that's what the Q's for. That's what us instructors are there for. We're there to help you and we're there to kind of motivate you. So utilize those tools. And sometimes we have to tell you, go rewrite something, and that can be frustrating, but it's all for your benefit. So that's where keeping a positive attitude in is going to really benefit you, because when life, kind of knocks you down, whether it's in coding or not, if you can have a positive attitude and roll with the punches and just get back up and keep moving, you're going to make progress and you're going to do well. But if you have a negative attitude and oh, this sucks, I can't do this, it's hard, well, you're not going to make it. So keep a positive attitude, make sure it's something you're interested in, because if you don't like writing code, it's not the industry for you, right? But yeah, I've found that it's really fun, especially because it's hard. So yeah, hopefully that's good advice. And
I think that's great advice. And I love that you mentioned the free resource, so that if someone is interested and they like don't even know what coding is, that you have these free resources so they can start to learn about coding, and it's not as, big of a jump in of like, I have no idea what I'm doing and I don't know what this is and I don't know if I like it. So I love hearing about the free coding courses, and I think that's just really great, and it shows like, I mean, it's a boot camp, so it's kind of like implied in the title of the course. Like it's gonna be hard. Boot camp's not easy in the military, and it's not easy at Savio, and it takes a lot of hard work. But then at the end, you can be like so proud of what you accomplished, and you have this new skill that you had to work really hard to get.
yeah, absolutely. Nothing worthwhile in life is easy. And I've proven that many times. Everything I've done that was easy didn't last long, and it wasn't worth it. It would have been much more worth it to take the hard road and learn all those things you learn in doing so. So,
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time. I really enjoyed getting to talk to you about your experience at Sabio, both as a student and working as an employee, and just how you're able to continue to give back as working at Sabio. So thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
yeah, thank you. I appreciate you inviting me, and you take care as well. And hope to see some of the people in chat as future students at Sabio. So,
Yeah, I'll put links to the info session so people can go check it out once we finish this interview on YouTube and LinkedIn. So thanks everyone for watching and have a great week.
Thanks.